Good day everyone, my name is Czarina Princess Aguilar, BSBA Marketing Management. So today I will be gonna reporting the behavioral approach and result approach. So first, let us know what is behavioral approach. Behavioral approach is define the behavior of an employee that must exhibit to be effective in the job. It rests on the idea that you can get the right level of performance from employees based on a demonstration of desirable behaviors. So, behavioral approach is various techniques that define the behavior of an employee, and then it requires the manager to assess the extent to which employees exhibit them. Behavioral approach is important because it helps the manager to know and to understand their employee, the employee's behavior, and the employee's working pattern. So, next, there are 5 techniques of behavioral approach. First is critical incident, behaviorally anchored rating scales or bars, behavioral observation scale or BOS, organizational behavioral modification OBM, and last is assessment center. So first, let us know what is critical incident. So critical incident is approach that requires the manager to keep record of specific examples of the employee acting in a way that are either effective and ineffective performance. So for example is a customer called in about a refrigerator that was not cooling and was making clicking noise every few minutes. The technician pre-diagnosed the cause of the problem and checked his truck for the necessary parts. When he found he did not have them, he checked the parts out from inventory so that the customer's refrigerator will be repaired on his first visit and the customer will be satisfied promptly. So the incident here provides evidence of employees' knowledge about refrigerator repair and concerns of efficiency and customer satisfaction. So, evaluating the performance in this specific way gives employee feedback about what they do well and what they do poorly. So, the manager can also relate the incident to know the employees helping the companies achieve the goal. Keeping daily or weekly lag of critical incidents requires significant effort. And also, critical incident is unique because they not support comparison among employees. Second is behaviorally anchored rating scales or bars. So, bars is built on critical incident approach. It's intended to define the performance dimension specifically using statements of behavior that describe different levels of performance. So, to develop bars, we first gather a large number of critical incidents that represent effective and ineffective performance on the job. So, these incidents are classified into performance dimension, and the one that experts clearly represent a particular level of performance are used as behavioral example to guide the rater. So, for example here, the scale in figure shows that the various performance level of the behavior which is preparing for duty. So, the statement at the top, which is the rating 7, it describes the highest level of performance of preparing for duty. And the statement at the bottom, which is the rating 1, describe the behavior associated with poor performance. So these statements are based on data about past performance of the employee, and the organization gather many critical incidents of the employee representing effective and ineffective performance, and then they classified them from most to least effective performance. When experts agree about the job, the statement clearly represent level performance. They are used as anchor to give the rater. So the anchor will serve as a guide to the manager, and the rating becomes the employee's score. So next is the advantage of bars. They can increase iterator reliability by providing a precise and complete definition of the performance dimension. And the disadvantage of bars is they can bias the information recall. So next is the 4 actions in using bars. First is define the key of behavior. Second is use a measurement system to assess the behaviors. Third is inform employee of their behavior to be measured. 4 is provide feedback and reinforcement to the employee. So that is the 4 action in using bars. Next is the third is behavioral observation scale, or BOS. So BOS is a variation of bars, and like bars, BOS is developed from critical incidents. So BOS is different from bars in 2 ways. So first is rather than discarding a large number of behaviors that exemplify effective or ineffective performance, BOS is used many of them to more specifically define all the behaviors that are necessary for effective performance. Second is rather than assessing which behavior best reflect an individual performance, BOS is required the manager to rate the frequency which the employee has exhibit each behavior during the rating period. So for example, an example here is the overcoming resisting the change. So BOS is require more information than most manager can process or remember. And BOS use 80 or more behaviors, and the manager must remember how frequently and the employee exhibit each of these behavior. And these rating are then averaged to compute the overall performance rating. So next is organizational behavior modification, or OBM. So OBM is a plan for managing the behavior of employee through formal system and feedback and reinforcement. So there are 4 components of OBM. First is define a set of key behaviors necessary for job performance. Use a measurement system to assess whether the employee exhibit the key behavior. Third is inform employees of the key behavior, perhaps in terms of goal for how to exhibit the behavior. And fourth is provide feedback and reinforcement based on employees' behavior. So, for example here, a community mental health agency used OBM to increase the rates and timeliness of critical job behaviors by showing employees the connection between job behavior and the agency accomplishment. So this process identified the job behaviors related to administration, record keeping, and service provided to clients. So feedback and reinforcement improve staff performance. And OBM also increased the frequency of safety behavior in processing plans. So giving feedback and reinforcement to the staff will increase their performance. So lastly is the assessment center. So assessment center is individuals usually perform a number of simulated tasks. An assessor observes the individual's behavior and evaluate their skills or potential as a manager. So assessment center is normally used in selection or promotion, but also for measuring performance simulation are carried out. Multiple raters evaluate employee performance. So that is the assessment center. And The advantage of assessment center is it provides objective measure of an individual performance at managerial tasks. It allows specific performance and feedback. Ang individualized developmental plan can be planned or designed. And for example of assessment center is assessment center for certification like middle manager certificate after OJT and developmental exercise. So that is the example of ang assessment center. So next is competency model. So competency model is identifies and provide description of competency that are common for an entire occupation, organization, job family, or a specific job. Competency model can be used for performance management, and competency model is guideline to develop by a human resource department that set out the specific skill, knowledge, and behavioral requirements that enable an employee to perform their job successfully. So, competency model is can be used to help identify the best employee to fill open position and as the foundation for development plans that allow the employee and manager to target the specific strength and development areas. So there are types of competencies. First is core or foundational competency. Second is functional competency. And the leadership competency. So first is let's discuss the foundational or core competency. So foundational competencies include the baseline skill that required by the organization for all employees. These are the basic things that employees must fulfill. This will vary from company to company as it depends on values, philosophy, and goals of each organization, but can include basic requirements like communication skill or teamwork. So most of jobs are most of the job require basic elements of being able to work with other people to some degree. So the goal of foundational competency is to reflect in broad competency that reflect the strength and the uniqueness of the organization. So next is functional competency. So functional competency are job specific skill and behavior that are unique for each role. So for example here, competency for a restaurant waiter may be the ability to effectively handle customer complaints, where a competency for an accountant may be the ability to analyze a specific type of financial data in order to prepare reports. So in functional competency, we shall describe what behavioral skill we need to be perform in order for the employee to be a top performer in their positions. So next is leadership competency. So leadership competency are often used for supervisory and management related role, although can be applied to any job position that can require an employee to lead others. So in leadership competency, they include leadership skills and behavior like decision-making abilities. So next is the evaluation of behavioral approach. So the advantages of behavioral approach is behavioral approach can be very effective. It links the company's strategy to specific behavior necessary for implementing the strategy. It provides specific guidelines and feedback for employee about the performance expected of them. And most of techniques rely on in-depth job analysis so that the behaviors are identified and measured for are valid. And because those who will use the system develop the measures, the acceptability is always often high. And finally, with a substantial investment in training raters, the techniques are reasonably reliable. And the disadvantages of behavioral approach is that it can be closely tied to a company strategy. The behavior can measured must be constantly monitored and revised to ensure that they are still linked to the strategic focus. And also, this approach also assume that there is one best way to do the job and that the behaviors that constitute this best way can be identifiable. So next, let's discuss the result approach. So result approach focuses on managing the objective, measurable results of a job or work group. This approach assumes that the subjectively can be eliminated from the measurement process and the result are the closest indicator of one's contribution to organizational effectiveness. And according to Aguilar 2009, the result approach is ideal when employees have the skill needed to complete work tasks. They can recognize and correct inaccurate behaviors. So this approach is simple and straightforward concept wherein the organization rate the employees on the basis of performance result. The result approach focuses only on the end result of employees' action. Like for example, the mistake that made of the employee or the sales per month of the employee. So next is there are types of result approach. First is balance scorecard techniques and productivity measurement and evaluation system or PROMES and the management by objectives or MBO. First, let's discuss the scorecard techniques. So scorecard techniques are some companies use the balance scorecard to measure the performance of the employee. So there are 4 perspectives of balance scorecard. First is financial perspective, which focuses on creating sustainable growth in shareholders' value. Second is customer perspective, which is define the values customer. Third is internal or operations perspective, which focuses on process that influence customer satisfaction. And last is learning and growth perspective, which focuses on the company's capacity to innovate and continuously improve. So each of the perspectives are used to translate the business strategy into organization, managerial, and employee objective. Next is the performance management system is a part of the company's border. The people development system, which is designed to ensure the learning and development align with business strategy and drive business result while ensuring employees have the skill to succeed in their current and future job. The PDS includes the performance management process, learning and career development process, and succession planning process. So next is the productivity measurement and evaluation system or PROMES. It is very effective in motivating employees for enhanced productivity and measuring the feedback. So the goal of PROMES is to motivate the employee to higher level of productivity. So there are 4 steps in PROMES. First is identify the objectives which the organization want to achieve. Second is measure how well these objectives are made. And third is involves how effective are they in evaluating employees' performance. Fourth is give feedback to the employees. Next is the management by objectives or MBO. So the management by objective is popular in both private and organization. It is a system in which people at each level of the organization set goals in a process that flow from top to bottom, so the employee all the level are contributing the organization's overall goals. These goals are used as a standard by which an individual's performance is evaluated. So the management by objectives or MBO is setting goal to evaluate the performance of the individual. So there are three components of MBO. First is goal are specific, difficult, and objective. The goal listed on the second column is the table provided with two examples for a bank. So the manager and their employees work together to set that goals. And the manager gives objective feedback through the rating period to monitor the progress toward the goals. So the two right-hand column in the table are examples of feedback given after 1 year. And next is SMART goal is the most effective goal. So SMART goal stands for specific, which is clearly stated, define the result to be achieved, measurable compared to standard, attainable, difficult but achievable, relevant, linked to organization success factors or goals, timely, measured in deadline, due dates, cycles, or schedule. So the SMART goal is these are goals become the standard for evaluating each employee's performance. So next is the evaluation of the result approach. So the advantages of result approach are minimize subjectively objective and quantifiable indicators of performance are used. High acceptability links individual performance to organization strategy and goals. And the disadvantages of result approach are measures can be contaminated and deficient. Employees tend to focus on measurable aspect of performance or neglecting others. And feedback lacks behavioral aspects. So that's the advantages and disadvantages of result approach. So, thank you for listening to my report. So, that's all about the behavioral approach and the result approach.